What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? DFS 5-pack here to talk about the NBA slate for the 4th of February. Hopefully everybody had a good Wednesday night. Smaller slate tonight. Some decent basketball games. Not quote-unquote crush spots, though, from a DFS perspective.
Definitely not. We've gotten used to some of these spots, like where there's so many good plays. I mean, OKC Houston last night, where there's guys out, smash plays all over. We don't really have any of that on this slate.
At least not as of yet.
Yeah. We know that there's one game with potential issues there. And quite frankly, every game in the NBA nowadays could turn into one of those games.
Yeah, game specifically we're talking about is going to be Philadelphia against Portland. Very difficult to break that game down. We're pretty confident there's going to be some good plays we like there by the end of the day. It's just we don't know about a couple of players right now. So hopefully we'll be able to drop a few more details on that one later today for those of you who are interested. So Thursday, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Drafters. We will definitely get out some Drafters video later today. I brought this up yesterday. Looking for people who want to do a $5, again, we don't have to play for big money or anything like that, a head-to-head battle. If you are a new player and want to try signing up here, it's live snake drafts throughout the day. Use the promo code DFS5-pack. Play me in a $5 head-to-head battle, heads up. Got a good chance to win that one, right? It's just a heads-up battle. If you beat me, get you a free month of DFS 5-pack services. Our screen names on there are Kazatron and M. Bellman 967. Send us a friend request on there so you can get in the player pool. We play with our customers all day long. It's a lot of fun. And I think my favorite thing about Drafters is, like, if you get Jokic tonight, like let's just say you love Jokic or Bron or whoever it might be, you are the only one that has him. None of this everybody has him type of situation.
Unless you're playing in those GPPs. But yes, your point is very valid there.
Good point. Yeah, so it's just fun. Like, you get the guys that you want to get. You get to play around with in these snake drafts, like thinking you can get them back on the swing back on the next round. Somebody takes them from you, kind of sucks, but it's not everybody has the same players.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice. I'm excited to do one afternoon.
All right, guys. As far as 5-pack promotions go, we haven't gotten to the 175 likes the last couple of days, but if we could just do 100 likes today, we've gotten there 2 in a row. Make it 3 days in a row of 100 likes. We'll do members only free to the public tomorrow, not Wednesday, tomorrow. And then something I wanted to bring up that we're going to talk about a lot for the next week is we're going to be making some adjustments on pricing. And monthly prices have been the same for about 4 years now. They are going to go up. We're going to be adding weekly packages. So what I would encourage people who like the $30 monthly price and want to get it locked in, we're going to be running a monthly sale for the next week, half off. And what I mean by that is buy a monthly package, get the first month half off, and then you can keep the cheaper price for as long as you want to stay a customer. Once you cancel and the price change, there is no more $30 monthly pricing. We've kept it the same for a long time. There's going to be a subtle price bump. But if you want to take advantage and get locked in for the next week, sign up to be a monthly customer, get half off that first month to get your reimbursement right away. And then you can keep that price for as long as you want it. That could be for 20 years if you want it. But, I'm not assuming that's going to be the case. I'm just saying lock it in now so that you don't have to pay any kind of increase. It's very similar to how I have not canceled my gym membership because the registration fee to re-sign back up is like basically 7 months of gym membership at one of the local gyms here in Green Bay, even though I really haven't been going during COVID. So you just keep the cheap price.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. Man, I'm excited for everything we got going on.
All right, guys, subscribe to the station if you're new to it. Let's go through our favorite plays. So I want to start out with Toscano Anderson, and I would encourage everybody, please listen to this one because it's a layered conversation. It's not just quote-unquote auto lock like some other cash game plays. Like, I don't know, like Diallo was last night. You just auto lock, you don't think twice about it. Like, I look at Toscano Anderson as a little bit more of a layered conversation. One, both for what you can expect out of him, but also what his ownership will be. So Looney left last game. He's going to be out for about 2 weeks. We know Wiseman is out. This forces the Warriors to be in a position where they're very, very small right now. And we saw Toscano Anderson get the majority of the run as they went small last game, but kind of had to employ him as one of the few bigger bodies they had left out there. He had a good game. He shot 3 of 3 from 3. That's not something that'll stick up forever. I think his ownership will be heavily swayed by whether or not he starts. I think he's going to be popular no matter what, but I think whether or not he's overwhelming chalk has a lot to do if he's in the starting lineup tonight. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree wholeheartedly. And the more I look at this, the more broken down this slate, the more comfortable I am with getting away from him in tournaments, even if he is starting. Let you go on with Cass first before I get into that.
Okay, so I look at him if he's starting tonight, and we will know this. This is one of the earliest games to start. There are a couple games that start at 6:30 Central. This is one of them, so you should know in plenty of time in order to make your lineups. If he is starting, I think that gives a major bump up. I mean, I think he could go from 40% to 80% then if that's the case, or whatever projections you want to come up with. He's currently projected to be like one of the third or fourth most popular guys on this slate. I think if he's starting, he might be the most popular guy on this slate because then he offers you value at the power forward position, allows you to get your Lucas and your John Walls of the world and everything like that. So his popularity, I think, will correlate a lot as far as whether or not he's in the starting lineup. If he's coming off the bench, I still think he's in play for cash games, but I don't know if I view him as much of the free square. He's not a great player. He's not going to have like a major role offensively for this team. Obviously, we know who the good players are: Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, et cetera, et cetera. So my desire to lock him in as a free square has a lot to do with starting today. I do, however, think his odds of succeeding if he runs to the second unit might actually be better. So it doesn't mean you can't play him, but we also know this is not a great basketball player. So he could play 25 minutes today and just meander into 13 points, which is extremely fadeable, which goes to your point about fading him in tournaments.
Well, yeah. So first off, the reason that I agree with you. He definitely could have, more usage and it could be a better percentage if he's coming off the bench. However, if he's coming off the bench, there's no guarantee he comes off the bench and plays more than 15 minutes here, even though they're shorthanded, because quite frankly, it's Juan Toscano Anderson. That's why. So for me, the biggest reason that I think he's a filler piece, especially if he's starting. I don't think you have to fade him, but I think you'll be able to get on board with this. Even if he's starting, there is basically no scenario where I think Toscano Anderson puts up a score that you have to have. The reason he's going to be so popular and that he makes so much sense is because he allows you to get those other expensive players. I think for me, I'd rather take shots on other guys in this price range that, we're going to get to a couple of them or one of them later in the show that might not be as good on paper, but are going to be much less owned and have very similar ceilings, if not higher ceilings.
Yeah, I understand that one completely. So again, I wanted to talk about him because I think he lines up to be one of the more popular guys on the slate, but I'm not willing to line this up. Again, this is not Diallo and Maladon for me, which I just played. I just put him into my shooting guard and small forward spot last night, played him in every single lineup. They were extremely popular for all the obvious reasons. I thought they would succeed. They did succeed. Everybody thought they'd succeed. That's why they were so popular. I do not view Toscano Anderson in the same light. And if he's starting, I think you take the quote unquote free square in cash games, but I can get on board GPP fade under all scenarios.
I definitely view Toscano Anderson more like the Kyle Singlers of the world than those other guys. And not like those other guys are fantasy stars, but they've shown that they can produce in good matchups and with Shy out. Toscano Anderson, again, like you said, if he plays 25 minutes here, there's a chance of 13 DK points. Also a chance he could easily get 25 DK points because it's not that hard to walk into him if you're playing that many minutes. But I do think it's an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah, and somebody has to get the rebounds. That's the joy of being a bigger player out in the court is there's rebounds in every game. Everybody who watches the NBA or any basketball game knows that rebounds are one of the more replicable statistics. And because he's going to be one of the bigger bodies on Golden State, he should, if he's playing minutes, he should meander into 4, 5, 6 rebounds at the very minimum.
For sure. And one reason I like him, I like the cut of his jib. He's a tough player. He's gritty. He's grindy. Those type of players, again, I don't view him like Kyle Singler. I just, again, like you said, don't view him like those guys from OKC either. Man, it's definitely this is a wide range of outcomes. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about him. I don't view him as the lock of locks, but I thought it was a very interesting conversation and somebody that I wanted to kind of discuss for the public today.
For Sizzle.
All right, next up, cover boy for the day, Jamal Murray. So I'm going to give you my quick tidbits on him before I get why here's your GPP play of the day. The more we talk about him, the more I like him. He's under 7K in a national TV game. Jamal Murray is a guy that sometimes I'm not that excited about him in quote unquote crush spots because he doesn't mind deferring in the regular season. You could line him up against the Wizards and it might seem like the greatest spot of all time, but he just might not be that aggressive. I don't see that being the case in a big game tonight against the Los Angeles Lakers. Um, the more we talk about him, the more I like him. And a point that you brought up, you and all of your sports betting background, you don't like teams in their first game back from a long road trip. And so your thought on this one might be maybe the Lakers, who are just on a grueling long road trip, don't play well defensively today. And also Denver's without their best defensive players right now, no Dozier, no Gary Harris. So this could be a more offensive oriented game potentially than people think.
It could be more offensive oriented than most Denver Lakers games. I'll say that. It's not going to be like a run and gun type game, but I think this sets up to be more offensive minded than usually when these teams meet. And as far as Murray goes, yeah, the more we talk about, the more I look at the slate, the more I like Murray. This slate is filled with guys who are solid plays, not necessarily in crush spots, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show. So the competition for Murray, to get there and to beat the other guys on the slate isn't nearly as high as it would have been like yesterday. You mentioned it. This is a guy that gets up for big games. I do think that the Lakers defense is a little bit, maybe one step slower today. And a point you made, a bunch on our members only video that I'm really jiving with is, potentially stack here. I think you can use Murray as a big piece of that stack. I think you can use him as a one-off. We know his upside is real if his shot is falling and he's engaged. I love him in this spot. Big get-up spot for both teams. Man, I love Murray here. The more we talk about it, the more I really like him.
He's also not going to be very high owned for GPP purposes. And the reason is because there's good point guards in play. And we're going to get to one of them next that on paper is just the better play and a guy that's going to be a staple of my lineups. Not saying that you can't play Murray instead, but it's almost more of a case maybe you just play them together. But you know how the roster construction works in DK. You can roster 3 point guards with the point guard, and utility spot. But as soon as one of them becomes quite popular, that eats into all the others.
For sure.
All right, next up. So this is the guy that we're kind of referring to, John Wall. I think he's a guy that he works in all formats, cash games, GPP, you name it. I think he's in play here. So there's a lot working right here. So he sat last night for quote unquote injury management. And that's why, me, you, and a lot of people, kind of flocked to Victor Oladipo. Well, Oladipo and most of the Rockets last night played like butt. They were awful. They just played terrible. Oladipo shot 8 of 24. Guys lost run because, the Thunder played well and the Rockets didn't. I actually really like that today for John Wall because he probably sitting around watching that game last night thinking this is awful. We had come in hot to this game, had been playing really, really well. Just a couple of days ago, this Rockets team shot, 100 of 100 from three-point range against the Thunder in the first half. And then I think last night they went 42 minutes without scoring the ball. So I like that for John Wall today. I think he comes out, he plays with a lot of aggressiveness. And very likely no Victor Oladipo takes away one of the 3 ball handlers that they have in him and Eric Gordon and Victor Oladipo, limiting it to 2 of them. For all the reasons that we liked Oladipo last night and everybody liked Oladipo, those all apply to John Wall today. Just because Victor Oladipo played like garbage last night doesn't mean that John Wall will play like garbage today. He just was a bad game. Sometimes players have bad games. That is the nature of watching sports in DFS. Everybody knows that. Wall is too cheap here, in my opinion, for what you might potentially get out of him. He's had a couple of games lately where he was good but not great. But part of the problem was he didn't have to play for the last 18 minutes of the game because they were almost too good. In this scenario where Memphis keeps this game competitive and Houston's good in this game and this game, is within 10 to 15 points or even closer, I think there is like legit real upside to be had here. If we can get John Wall to play his full allotment of minutes, which could be 32 now. The minutes restriction's been lifted a little bit. He's just been involved in a couple of blowouts lately, so I think we get potentially more minutes. He's really good. You got no Victor Oladipo in this game, more than likely, kind of eating into his ownership. I think he's probably, if I had to bet on one guy to 5X or better today, I think it would be John Wall.
Yeah, at least for like the more expensive guys, right? Like if Toscano Anderson's starting, like that, but like that doesn't.
I would
really
bet
count.
on John Wall to hit cash value before Toscano Anderson, although I think Toscano Anderson might be more likely to like 10X.
What is cash value at 3.5K? Like 17 DK points?
Yeah, give or take. Yep.
I think that's close. I mean, listen, if he's starting, he should be able to get 17. Not that it's a lot, but I'm with you. Like, Wall's in a real good spot to put off value here. For me, this one's pretty simple. The blowouts, and Wall is definitely not a guy that is going to play like extended minutes and blowouts. I remember the other night you talking about Sabonis was out there on the court in a 20-point game. And that will not be Wall ever this year. But like you mentioned, didn't play last night, in a real good spot here after the Houston got rolled. And again, he's 1,000 cheaper than Oladipo was last night in a very similar spot. He makes a ton of sense. One of the best plays, at least on paper, on the entire slate for sure.
Oladipo, again, he was just terrible last night. He just played poorly. But that doesn't – the process and why he was three-quarters owned or whatever he was in cash games, I'm sure he was probably close to 50% in GPPs too. I didn't look that closely. The process still made sense.
He took 24 shots.
Yeah, they just didn't go in. He shot 33% against a less than stellar basketball team. They didn't fall. Depot has those games. John Wall, I think right now he's still a little bit of a better player than Victor Oladipo. I think he's motivated by last night. I find him to be a high floor play no matter what. And if this game is close, a guy who has got a nice ceiling as well.
Wall is, again, and we have to take it with a grain of salt because he's missed a couple of years, but Wall is more consistent than Oladipo. Like, Oladipo is very good, but he's not as consistent as a lot of the other, stars, the superstars, which Wall is. I mean, I agree. I think Wall is still a little bit better than Oladipo too.
They're not A+ shooters. Neither of them are A+ shooters, but Wall's a better assist guy though.
Yeah, and like he's 1,000 cheaper. Like, if you know what I mean, if they were the same price, and like let's just say, like, I don't know, like in an alternate universe, this slate was playing and Victor Oladipo was 6,900 against Memphis with Wall out. Like, who would you like more, Victor Oladipo there or Wall here?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know.
But that's the point. And he's 1,000 cheaper than Oladipo was last night, and we loved Oladipo, so it just makes too much sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I often talk about it. When some of your plays don't succeed, try to reevaluate them. Were you wrong or unlucky? And some days, guys just don't make shots. You cannot control that. That's kind of where I felt about Victor Oladipo last night. You have other plays, you're like, I forgot about the back-to-back. Maybe I was just wrong on this one. I thought the game would be close and it wasn't, blah, blah, blah.
Can't be results-oriented. I mean, it has to be just a part of your process, but I'm with you.
All right, so let's move into long shots today. So there was a long shot that I played a lot yesterday that I ended up liking more and more as the day progressed. I think he'll be a little bit more popular today for two reasons. One, he's now got back-to-back games of succeeding, and the name is Josh Richardson. The other one is there's just not as many crush spots on the slate. Like, I got it. I thought he was a good play yesterday, but I understand why he was 1% in my main contest because there were so many good plays yesterday that you didn't necessarily need a guy at this price tag. Today, he'll get more love, but I still don't expect him to be overwhelming chalk. And a big part of that is a reason that you pointed out like a week ago is that because he was playing like a total scrub for most of the year. Now, ever since you called him out, Matt, he owes you big time because he's actually played well since then. He's a decent basketball player, too. He's a very good defensive player. He's not a bad shooter. He ran into 2 blocks, 2 steals last night. Should have had a third steal, but the stat guy screwed it up. He probably gets a little bit more love today, but I still wouldn't expect him to be super, super high owned.
I agree. I mean, he's not going to go from 1% to like all of a sudden. I think he's still probably like 10%-ish on this slate. It's a much smaller slate, and he's playing a lot better. And there isn't, yesterday he was right in between, right with those OKC guys. So it made sense for him not to get much love at all. Tonight, we don't have that. However, people are still put off by him. He hasn't played well all year. I like the call, though. I like Dallas in this spot a lot. I think they play well here. Again, you talked about Golden State missing all their big men. I think that Dallas is going to be able to get to the rim at will. A lot of in this spot at, again, this is kind of a long shot in a multitude of ways. It's not really a price long shot, but it's a long shot in terms of maybe he's starting to play better. He's not going to be owned. I like the call.
Also, there's a chance Porzingis doesn't play today, which is just one. They're down one really good offensive player in that case. So they're going to need offense from more guys than just Porzingis, Tim Hardaway, and Luka Doncic. Then it's only Luka and Hardaway are the only decent offensive players they have left. Not that, Finney Smith and Kleba and these guys won't score some points, but those guys are not great offensive players.
No doubt.
All right, next up, so Kent Bazemore. So this is one of the guys you were alluding to earlier as far as like in GPPs, Toscano Anderson might be, especially if starting, 40% tonight. And what's Kent Bazemore going to be, 1%?
Yeah, so I mean, the math there is like, Toscano Anderson is 30 times higher than a guy like Kent Bazemore. I mean, as I mentioned before, it's not like Juan Toscano Anderson is back for massive DFS points. And to be brutally honest, though, I think you could play both at their price points. We've talked about Golden State being very shorthanded. Bazemore is a guy that we've seen be productive in the past. He's in a good spot to get some minutes here. And mentioned, if he starts to play well when he's on the court, he'll get some more minutes. We've seen Steve Kerr do that. This team is very undefined outside of like their main stars. So when guys are playing well, they're going to get extra run. They like Bazemore. I think Bazemore is a true sleeper here. I wouldn't say I'm going to lock him in, but at 3,300, the risk is minimal. I don't think he gets much love, and he could be a big difference on this slate if he gets a score like 20 to 25, and Toscano Anderson gets that 13 like we talked about.
So Bazemore is an interesting guy. I mean, they've locked him into like that 8 minutes per half type of role, right? Like he gets very short run, and you'd like to see him play more because he's a very capable NBA player. But with no Wiseman or Looney tonight, and they have to go small, move Draymond down to the 5, like, we brought up Toscano Anderson or Eric Paschall, whatever these guys might be. None of these guys are great players. Like, what if they're shorthanded? Like, what if Oubre gets into early foul trouble, Toscano Anderson's playing like garbage, and they just need a few extra minutes? This could definitely be one of those games where maybe Bazemore hits a couple of threes and he starts vibing and playing better than he has. We've seen Bazemore with 40 and 50 DK point games in his career. You can't say that for a lot of other really, really cheap guys. Now, we haven't seen it this year, but that's because he plays with Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins. He just doesn't get enough touches. It was a little different back in the day when he played for Atlanta, and they were terrible, and just, he was one of their better players. It's not the situation he's in. But why not tonight? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, why couldn't be the spot tonight where he hits a couple of threes and Steve Kerr gives him an extra 5 to 10 minutes?
I love it. You're getting me hyped over here.
So he's not somebody I would put in a core of players. No. But if you set 10 lineups, pivot off of some of the other Golden State guys, or don't play anybody else. Only play him. It doesn't take a lot to hit good value on 3,300, especially on a slate where we prognosticate you don't need 400 to take down GPPs tonight. We had a customer win a GPP the other day with 297. My best bet is 297 does real damage to me.
If you told me Bazemore was going to give me 20 here, I'd lock him in.
Yeah, we don't know that, but I do think he does some of the things that like DK rewards. He can get steals. Besides the fact he only plays like mid-teens minutes, he does average almost a steal a game. So
just imagine Bazemore coming in, making his first 2 threes. Woo! I'm going to be so pumped for here.
Nice, guys. That is what we got for today. We appreciate y'all watching. Keep clicking that thumbs up button, and we can do members only free to the public tomorrow. Again, I'm going to keep bringing this up a lot over the next week because I want to make sure that current customers hear it and people who have thought about joining under the monthly package. Price goes up next week. We're going to be adding weekly packages to the website as well. There's been some new integration that makes things easier on iSide, so we can do weekly packages a little bit easier than we would have been able to do before. But if you sign up under the $30 a month, like you can be grandfathered into that price. Even when we raise it, you have that price for as long as, it seems like that's what you want.
Let's get it, guys.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.